Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who. Last time around was 42. What was that one about?
Well, despite thinking it was the answer to what is the meaning of life, it turned out to be an episode where literally 42 minutes would pass. It was done in real time. The Doctor and Martha land on this spaceship, a cargo ship that apparently has accidentally on purpose mined some energy from a sun because although it's in the process of being illegal, they wanted to get it so they could make their run and make their profit from it. But then the ship starts going crazy and people start being possessed by some sort of spirit that wants them all to burn. And it turns out that the sun is actually not an inorganic being, inorganic substance. It's actually a living being, and they were literally like stripping its skin off. So the Doctor returns the borrowed stuff back to the sun, and they are able to escape.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty much that. I really have nothing further to say about the episode, so I can't really further the conversation.
One of the things that I really liked, we talked about, was the fact that instead of being like a lot of the classic Doctor Who episodes where they land on a spaceship and it's all, early Star Trek, sterile and clean and everything, this was a freighter, lots of tubes and pipes and grunge everywhere.
Yeah.
Very much like the original Alien.
Yeah,
film.
So. But yeah, that's pretty much where we left off. The good news, I can say, is that we've got 5 episodes left of this season, and they are all bangers, from what I remember. So, which is good, because I'm going to be honest, I don't know how many people are catching it in these episodes, but I am slowly losing my steam when it comes to these episodes. And especially last episode, I was just like, I don't know what to say about this episode. It's fine. It's not even bad or anything, but I'm just like, there's nothing. That may be one of the shortest reactions we've ever done. It was like 8 minutes of footage. However, I do pride myself on our unhinged discussion of whether or not Sabrina Carpenter is real. So if anyone has skipped the last reaction and they just wanted to get to here because they wanted to watch this reaction, definitely go back and check out our reaction. Our discussion, at least, of last episode, and you'll get all the deets on that. So, do people still say deets? I don't think they do. I don't know. I don't think they do.
See, I used to hear that like 20 years ago.
Yeah, I'm slowly running out of current young people slang. I'm being shifted out of that. So,
well, I was telling Alex earlier this week in my Facebook memories, a picture of Alex popped up. And it was his high school graduation picture, with the suit and the tie and the whole works and the hair combed nicely. And
actually with hair on the top, so.
That was 10 years ago, so.
Yeah. Is been a while. And, it's strange. I was just thinking the other day, I did like a paper in my freshman year of college about millennials. And I made a video, presentation of it. It might still be here on the channel, actually. But I made that, and it was about millennials and everything. And now, 10 years later, I have been forcibly pushed out of my own generation because I am no longer considered a millennial. Because now, what used to be Gen Z started in the year 2000. It now specifically starts in 1997, which was when I was born. So I have now forcibly been labeled a Gen Z. However, I have noticed there is a split now between older and younger Gen Z. So there's the older Gen Z, where I'm at, where, we didn't have all the technology growing up. We had some. I got my first smartphone in 10th grade, so, which I guess is only 12 years ago at this point, but we had that, we're sort of we grew up on the Nintendo DS and the PSP and stuff like that. And then there's the younger Gen Z that were just given an iPhone and then, told good luck in the world, So, I'm at least part of that. I think we're now being called the Zillennials.
Okay.
I don't know why we couldn't have just left Gen Z at 2000 and called it a day, but here we are.
Well, two things from that. Yes, we did get Alex. You did have a flip phone before that, didn't you?
It did.
Yeah. So we finally gave in and got him the smartphone. But just to let you know, I'm not a Luddite or anything. I never saw the usefulness of having a telephone on me since, I was either at home or at work, and I had access to telephones everywhere. It wasn't until 2009, after I had my heart surgery, my triple bypass, that I even got a phone at all, and I deliberately asked the family to get me a dumb phone, a flip phone, and not just a dumb flip phone. I got the jitterbug. I mean, it's the palm of your hand, literally nothing you could do but call and text on it. That was it.
Yeah.
And I kept that up until 2017 or 18, and I finally got a smartphone, which again the family gave it to me because they thought I needed it. So, but I do very little on it. There's literally no apps on my phone. I use it for calling and texting, and that's pretty much it.
I mean, to be fair, as time goes on, I am using my phone for less and less. Like, back in the day when I first had it, I was putting mobile games, Minecraft, emulators, stuff like that on my phone. I don't have much of that anymore. I have YouTube to go and watch YouTube, which I don't even really watch YouTube. I more just scroll it to find videos to put in my watch history to watch later on a computer where I don't have ads because I use an ad block. So, and then I have some email, but I turned off notifications for those like 6-7 years ago because I got tired of that. And then currently, the biggest use of my smartphone is for Pokemon TCG Pocket because it's only available on smartphone. So every day I go in and open a new pack and get new cards and stuff like that. So, but that's really it. And like Googling stuff, but that's really it. I don't use it as much as I used to. So,
my other point regarding generations, I am of course a baby boomer. World War II ended in 1945. My parents were married in 47. My older brother was born in 48. I was born in 1951. That was getting just to the peak of the baby boom actually. And yes, so that meant that in November of 1963, I would have been just about to turn 12 years old, sitting there in Herringswell, England, during one of the saddest weekends of my parents' life. They were from Dallas, and obviously were very, very distraught over the assassination of President Kennedy in their hometown. And while we were sitting there watching through that, on comes this little program on a Saturday afternoon about some guy in a police call box who traveled through time. And I went, what is this? I keep watching. And I watched it for the 3 years that we were in England and didn't give it up until we left and came home in 66.
So if you ever have a disagreement with him in the comment section, you are legally allowed to write "Okay, Boomer" in response. So that doesn't mean you're right. It just means you're allowed to say it. It's not. I mean, you can say it to me just because I keep saying I'm old and I'm not. I'm only 27, but I saw a tweet. This is like last month or so, where someone wrote, like, guys, you guys need to settle down. Find yourselves an older woman who was, born between 1998 and 2001. And everyone else looked at that and was like, excuse you. That's age, an older woman aged 24 to 26. I don't think that's what that means. So,
anyway.
None of this matters to this episode, and the people that are coming in specifically to watch this reaction are troopers if they've stuck through this intro and haven't just gone to the reaction and the timestamps. So, anywho, human nature. This is a big one. Definitely a highlight of season 3, at the very least. So,
and by the way, before we start, is the episode Waters of Mars in this season or third season?
It's towards the end of Tennant's run.
Okay.
So it'll still be a while before we get there.
Okay, because that's the only one I remember that we watched from him.
It was that one and Girl in the Fireplace.
Oh, yeah.
Which we already did that one. So Waters of Mars will be the next one, but we'll get to that in a while. But yeah. Also, for anyone who is still sticking out and wants to know, we are doing another Torchwood this week. We're actually going to be doing 3 Torchwood weeks in a row. I had not planned on that. It was originally just going to be the last 2 episodes of the season. But by popular demand, we are doing 1 more episode. So
Okay, maybe.
that'll come out this week. But with all of that, whatever we said, being said, let's just get into this episode.
Did they see you?
I don't know.
But did they see you?
I was too busy running.
Martha, it's important. Did they see your face?
No, they couldn't have.
I'll have to do it. Martha, you trust me, don't you?
Of course I do.
Because it all depends on you.
What, Dad? What am I supposed to do?
Take this watch, because my life depends on it. This watch, Martha. This watch is...
Ah,
Yeah, it's funny how dreams slip away. But I do remember one thing. It all took place in the future. In the year of our Lord 2007.
I can prove that wrong for you, sir. Here's the morning paper. It's Monday, November 10th, 1913, and you're completely human, sir. As human as they come.
That's me. Completely human.
The Great War has not started yet, but the Titanic has sunk.
Doctor Who was all just a dream. We've just been watching a very elaborate hoax from the BBC for 50 years.
Another new writer, Paul Cornell.
I feel like you wrote something for Classic Who, and people are going to tell me in the comments.
Oh dear, is he going to meet Turlo?
This is exactly where Turlo would be.
Final reserve force was charged with protecting Napoleon, but by evening the advance of the Allied troops had forced them to retreat.
Battle of Waterloo?
Hands like those, how can you tell when something's clean?
That's very funny, sir.
Careful now, don't answer back.
I don't spat my bucket over his head.
Oh, I wish.
You know, I'm going to be honest. This is like the most British place on earth.
Truth be told, when it's just you and me, I'd much rather you called me Nurse Redfern. Matron sounds rather, well, matronly.
Nurse Redfern it is then.
Though we've known each other all of 2 months, you could even say Joan.
Joan?
That's my name.
Well, obviously.
And it's John, isn't it?
I said you fell down the stairs, sir.
No, it's just a tumble, that's all.
Have you checked for concussion?
I have, and I dare say I know a lot more about it than you.
Sorry. I'll just tidy your things.
Journal of Impossible Things.
Look at these creatures. Such imagination.
I sometimes think
Ah,
how magical
Paul
life
McGann.
would be if stories
there's
like
a
this
lot of
were
the faces around.
If only.
Right, well, never mind that little toad. Who's for beer?
You've got beer.
No, but Baxter's hidden a secret supply in Blackthorn Woods.
Well, what are you waiting for? Make sure the burst is down the pub before you get past his window.
Bottle for everyone, is it?
And none for the filth. Now hurry back, Baines, I'm parched.
In fact, these kids are too British.
This is only a few years after the first manned flight, so this should be very disturbing. E.T. phone home.
Just take the beer and leave. You've been out for so long.
Is there anyone there?
No. H.G. Wells would have written First Men in the Moon by this time, but I don't know if he had written War of the Worlds.
There you are. Nothing there. I told you so.
And that's Cooper's Field.
As far as the eye can see, and no falling star. Now come on, I'm frozen to the bone. Let's go. As your Mr. Smith says, nothing to see.
So God forbid you walk 3 feet in front of you and find it.
Those creatures are hunters. They can sniff out anyone. And me being a Time Lord, well, I'm unique. They can track me down across the whole of time and space.
And the good news is,
They can smell me, they haven't seen me. And their lifespans are running out, so we hide. Wait for them to die.
but they can track us down.
That's why I've got to do it. I have to stop being a Time Lord. I'm going to become human. Don't worry about the TARDIS. I'll put it on emergency power so they can't detect it. Just let it hide away. 4, no. Wait a minute. 3, no getting involved in big historical events. 4, you. Don't let me abandon you. And 5.
There was a meteor, a shooting star. What am I supposed to do then?
And 23.
You told me to come and collect that book, sir.
Good lad, yes. Yes! A definitive account of Mafficking by Edson Price. Where did I put it? And I wanted a little word. Your marks aren't quite good enough.
I'm top 10 of my class, sir.
Well,
Yes, but you could be top 5.
you should be the very top.
The secret lies within. I'm trapped. I'm caged inside the cold.
Close it!
Nevertheless, we'd best arm ourselves. Activate the soldiers.
Good heavens.
It's John Bull.
Ah,
How did you...
have to kick it!
No! No! Help me! Help me!
The Scarecrows went after him. I'm assuming Pennywise is going after her.
Those targets are tribesmen from the Dark Continent.
That's exactly the problem, sir. They only have spears.
Oh dear me. Latimer takes it upon himself to make us realize how wrong we all are. I hope, Latimer, that one day you may have a just and proper war in which to prove yourself. Now, resume firing.
Anything the matter, Brains?
I thought. No, sir. Nothing, sir.
As you were, Mrs. Smith.
The kid has a much better creepy face than Fop face.
In your journal, in one of your stories, you wrote about next year, 1914.
It was just a dream.
All those images of mud and wire told of a shadow. A shadow falling across the entire world.
Of deeds.
Yes, the old classic piano falling on someone's head.
Nice shot.
Nurse Redfern, might I invite you to the village dance this evening? As my guest.
You extraordinary man.
He's gotta do it while he still has his confidence up.
Before becoming ever the artist, where did you learn to draw?
Gallifrey.
Is that in Ireland?
Yes, it must be, yes.
You're not Irish.
Not at all, no. My father, Sidney, was a watchmaker from Nottingham. And my mother, Verity, was...
How many people think do you think caught the Sydney and Verity reference?
I don't know.
There's a nice creep factor.
Who's that then? Is it you, Saul?
Yeah, Slippin' Jimmy's out again.
It's all good, man.
What are you standing there for? Are you alright? It's like his contract comes to an end and she's going to be heartbroken.
Leave for where?
All sorts of places. I wish I could tell you, Jenny, but it's complicated.
Oh, dang it, Martha.
I could put a nice bit of gravy in the pot and some mutton or sardines and jam. How about that?
I like the sound of that.
Right.
Mhm.
Hold on a tick.
Sardines and jelly.
Yeah. Well, at least she caught on. Get laser guns.
This is not you. This is 1913.
Good. This is 1930.
I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, but I've got...
Spare a penny for the veterans of the Crimea, sir?
Yes, of course.
Yes, the old charge of the Light Brigade. Ours not to question why, ours but to do and die.
Please take your partners for a waltz.
This is one of the few dances I actually know how to do. Learned it when I was playing Colonel Pickering in My Fair Lady. Got to dance with Eliza Doolittle.
I think this might help.
That makes it easy, son of mine.
5 years before the end of the war.
You're called the Doctor. The man in your journal, he's real. He's you.
Either all, spare a penny, sir.
I didn't spare you.
No, not the veteran.
We have a few questions for Mr. Smith.
No. Better than that. A teacher. He's a doctor. I heard them talking.
You took human form. Which one of them do you want us to kill? Maid or matron? Your friend or your lover? Your choice.
Why would you have a two-parter in the middle of the season?
Oh. Next time.
Well, very interesting. Again, although they haven't told us who the family are, we've never heard of them before.
Well, yeah.
But obviously they need something from the Time Lord. But very well set. I mean, you know, it's drama of manners. This is, again, a lot of the theater during this time was, you know, Oscar Wilde and Baroness Orczy and other people that were writing about previous times. So, but this is set in pre-war England, and again, perfectly set up. And it's it's just the problem is now I got to wait till next week to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, it is Britain at the peak of their Britishness, I think. So,
now the one thing, this is where my history fails me, is they were talking about South Africa, and nobody seemed to know where it was. And I remember the Boers, who were the Dutch, had been there first, and then the British came in. This is about that time of... No, it had to be after, because the Battle of Rorke's Drift, where the very small contingent of British soldiers, like 125 British soldiers, held off the 4,000 Zulu warriors. I can't remember if that is late 1800s or pre... I'm sure it's pre-World War I, but I didn't think it was as late as 1913. So that's, to me, it's kind of confusing. So I'm sure to the British people, there's no... because they understand that's part of their history. Well, so, again, there's not that much to say about it, because they've set it up. I mean, it is a perfect setup in every way. You got the Lady or the Tiger ending there. Which of these two do you want us to kill? The only thing is the young boy, Timothy.
Yeah.
He's obviously somebody special, but we don't. There's been no setup at all as to why he's special, other than that Mr. Smith seems to think he should be top of his class. And again, it seems somewhat out of character for him to steal the watch, but he heard it speak to him. So, I mean, obviously there's some resolution that's got to involve him, but again, I have no idea where this is going.
Yeah. It does kind of trick you, too, because you kind of get to that ending, and it feels like, well, this is the climax right here. You know, they're going to they've revealed themselves. They're the families. The doctors. Something's going to happen. He's going to get the watch or something. And then it just stops, and it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. I guess we'll come back next week. I was prepared. You kind of figured like, well, there's probably another 5 minutes. We'll wrap things up and move on. But nope.
Got another whole 45-minute or 42-minute episode.
Yeah. So. But yeah, we are in 1913. The Doctor has completely altered his body into becoming human, which is just a thing he can do. It hurts, but he does, which is why he doesn't do it very often. If I remember correctly, I think this was based off of a Seventh Doctor novel of the same name, and I think it was written by the same guy. In the same way that the Dalek episode was also, I think that was also kind of based on like a Sixth Doctor story, and then that writer came back and readapted it for the Ninth Doctor. So I think this is very similar. I think it's still called Family Nature, if not, or maybe I want to say maybe Jubilee or something like that. But it's a Seventh Doctor story that is pretty much, from what I can tell, very similar to this, of the Doctor changing. I assume at that point he has Ace protecting him like Martha does, but I don't know. Obviously, just if you're curious, if you don't know, scroll down. Someone's going to tell you what it is, but it's an interesting one, especially too because it's just like it takes a little while to be like, what are we doing here? It's like, well, it's all a dream. Or obviously something's going on. Why is the Doctor Mr. Smith now and everything? But it's an interesting like setting and everything for it.
And I'm assuming one of the loose ends they'll tie up in the second episode is the very beginning of that episode where they are obviously being pursued and fired at, and the Doctor says, did they see your face? And she says, no, they couldn't have, so that's why they don't recognize her, and that's why she is here and would obviously play some part in the denouement of this story.
Well, presumably they didn't see either of them because they couldn't recognize either of them, but it's specifically that they're a sniffer race, basically. Yeah. And so they can smell a Time Lord very easily, which is why he had to change to a human. And from the little bits that we get of it, it's that this family, they need something. And all we know is that they have short lifespans, or they're very fragile or something, which is why he was like, well, if we can just wait them out. Martha was saying, like, well, in another month, we should be able to get out of here. If they had been able to wait that extra month, then presumably this family would have just died off, and then everything would have been fine.
Now, and again, not to be too nitpicky, but we need something to fill up the time here. I understood Baines and I understood Jenny, but the little girl with the red balloon and the farmer have no connection anywhere earlier in the story, do they? They just come out of nowhere. So how would the little girl know about the professor and this guy? And again, just some little scene early on, just a little passing thing where he says, oh, pretty balloon sort of thing, and she looks at him. But there needed to be, to me, something that would help set that up. Otherwise, at the end there, you're going, wait a minute, who are these two people?
Well, the thing is that they're at first, like, Baines was kind of an accident, that he just happened to stumble onto them, and they're like, okay, well, we'll just take this. So the dynamic of it is that Baines is the son of the family. Then they started to go out a little bit, like, okay, well, let's just go. We just need more bodies. So the father of the family took Mr. Clark. The daughter took the little girl. Then after that, then they started to hear, like, wait a minute, it's got to be something around the school. So then they specifically chose to take Jenny. So that was it. It's just that, Mr. Clark and the little girl, they were just more out there, but they were just people they could get their hands on. Okay. And then once they figured it out with the school, then they did that. Because at the end, it just happened that the daughter was there at the dance, just scoping things out. happened to hear Martha talk about the doctor, so...
And nobody in 1913 thought it was odd that this young girl literally carried that red balloon with her everywhere. I mean, she had it earlier, and she's got it at the dance. I mean, she's like, that in itself should be a giveaway that something's wrong with this girl.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess they're not looking. They're not...
Yeah.
They don't care enough. They have to, prepare for war and everything on the Dark Continent and stuff. Which was interesting. We get a little bit of that in the episode of it's like, well, luckily Britain is at peace. What could possibly go wrong there? But
yeah, and that is, I don't want to say it's historically inaccurate, but from the time of German unification up until 1914, literally everybody knew there was going to be a war. I mean, one of the most famous quotes of that time is that Europe is a tinderbox just waiting for somebody to strike a match. So, for him to say, we're going to war on the Dark Continent, that preparation, and again, maybe they have been fighting there, but then why didn't the students know about Johannesburg and South Africa and all that stuff? So that was just a little confusing to me, because it struck me that if they're being taught military tactics, firing the machine gun and everything, that's in preparation, knowing that at some point Germany is going to start spilling over its own borders. And the Germans actually didn't start it. It all happened because the Serbians refused to accept Austrian occupation, shot the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and then when the Serbians called on the Russians, who are essentially distant cousins, they said, look, we cannot fight the Austro-Hungarian Empire, will you help us? The Russians said absolutely, because they were willing to carve up Austria and Hungary. The Austrian and Hungarians said, look, we can fight Serbia, but we can't fight the Russians. So they said, hey, Germany, would you mind coming in on our side? And Germany said, sure, we'll come in on your side. Again, it could have been a regional conflict. This is where it all went wrong, at least is my understanding of it. This Balkan War would have been contained, wouldn't have become a world war, except that while Germany is gearing up to fight the war in the Balkans, some idiot in the German government said, you know what? We lost a couple of provinces to France back, I can't remember if it was the Napoleonic Wars or something else, but the Alsace and the Lorraine. And somebody said, why don't we just go ahead and while we're at it, take those two back? So they literally march into eastern France, not far from where I lived back in the 1950s. They take those two counties, and the French are going, dudes, this has nothing to do with us. But if you're going to take our land from us, then we're going to call on our friends, the British. And the British go, okay, well, we definitely would side with the Russians and the French against the Germans and the Austrians. And by, 1914, 1915, the British are saying, hello, Americans, can you do something? Can you help us out here? And that's when it becomes a global war, because the British had colonies around the world, the Germans had colonies around the world, the French had colonies around the world. So all of these colonies helped pitch in to create literally the first global conflict.
Well, yeah. So it is a bit odd that it's like, well, why are they getting ready? It's like, well, they're going to go to Africa, I guess. I don't know. What else is Britain doing in 1913? It's like, I don't know. But yeah, and we have that, like, Tim kind of having a vision of being in the war and everything. Yeah. And they kind of touch on it a little bit with, like, Joan, where it's just like, well, do they have to prepare for war? They're young teenage boys. Like, do they need to be doing this? Should they? And it's a thing of like, well, no, but also, I mean, it's gonna happen. But it's just like it's sort of like a half and half of like, it's like, on principle, no, but it will happen. But that's because we know it's going to happen.
Yeah,
I mean, they should know it's going to happen technically, but
and I don't want to get too much into modern politics, but I'll give you the corollary here, the parallel. After World War I, the United States really turned to a, shall we say, America First agenda, and basically said, we don't need to be getting involved in these European wars, these other continental wars, because these wars are obviously never going to affect us, because we've got 2 oceans that surround us and keep these other, this is before the advent of planes that could fly all the way across the Atlantic or the Pacific. And so in the late 30s, the United States literally was passing neutrality laws that said if something happens over in Europe, let them fight it out. But because the United States had elected Franklin Roosevelt, Roosevelt was looking at Europe going, we got to understand, if this thing blows up, it's going to be another world war. So he very quietly starts talking to the British and said, look, I can't legally sell you arms and ammunition and things like that, but we'll do this lend-lease. You lease it from us, and we'll get it back. And but he was essentially preparing the United States military, if nothing else, not the population, but the military, of saying we need to prepare for a war. Now, the big surprise there is, at least historically speaking, what most people think is the United States was unaware that Japan was going to attack Pearl Harbor. There is that theory, and again, I can't tell exactly how much truth there is, but there is the theory that very late in 1941, the United States began to understand that it was a probability that Japan would attack Pearl Harbor, and they literally let it happen in order to get the United States into the war on a legal footing. I don't personally believe that. I don't think there's any president of the United States up until this point who would literally let people die for that kind of means of getting into the war. So I suspect the United States was caught somewhat flat-footed because they expected something from Europe rather than from Asia to be what got us into the war. But anyway, so just this whole America First thing, let Europe fend for itself, that almost ended disastrously back in the 1930s and 40s. And, you got an idiot over there in Russia now who says, we'd like to bring Russia back to its empire status. And the United States currently is going, oh, yeah, let them do that. We don't have to worry. Really? You ever heard about an intercontinental ballistic missile? Oh, yeah. You ever heard about submarines? You ever heard about bombers that can fly around the world? So I do not understand the whole America First agenda. That is just the most head-in-the-sand move that anybody could be making at this point.
Oh, yeah. So
sorry about all the politics. I tried to phrase that as much as I could in historical terms, but
yeah. But it's an interesting thing that kind of touched on in this episode of preparing for war, and should you do that? Should you not do that? It's like, well, if in the context of this episode, like, well, Britain is at peace. The only conflict is if the British go down into Africa, which, I mean, they had at that point, but well, if you go down, it's like, well, you're prepared to take out the tribesmen. You get that thick British accent going that only exists in newsreels. So, but yeah, it's an interesting topic, definitely.
I will just throw this in. The 1964 film Zulu with Stanley Baker and Michael Caine, one of my favorite films of all time. If you've never watched it, you need to do so.
Yeah, so funny enough, we watched it the first time we watched it was on Daily Motion. I don't know if it's still there. It could be. They don't really have too many standards at Daily Motion, so but you can find it on there or get a DVD or something.
They ultimately bought me a DVD from it.
So
is that about it?
Pretty much. Next time we will conclude our two-parter about this. So
what's the next episode called?
The next episode is just called The Family of Blood. So there was a part of me that thought, like, I didn't know if you would catch that because, on the DVD menu it has the title right there. Yeah. So when they started talking about the family, I didn't know if you were going to catch that and think maybe this is a two-parter. Yeah. So but that's all right. There's a two-parter, I think it's season 5, I want to say, that completely caught me off guard, and I did not think it was gonna, like, the episode just ended right there. I was like, oh, I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready for the episode to end. I didn't think we were there, so yeah. I'll be curious if it still feels like that when we get to there, but that's a little while from now. But stick around for 2 days, and we'll have another Torchwood reaction, which is a by popular demand Torchwood episode, and it'll be good. So, but that is basically it. With all of that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of our modern Doctor Who reactions, as well as another playlist with every Doctor Who reaction that's on the channel. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.